This is a video to show all the changes and modifications that I made to my 2016 Bullet 500 RoyalEnfield. One of the very first changes I made to my bike was to add green LEDs to the neutral and turn signal lamps in the speedometer. They probably aren't showing up very well on this video, but before you couldn't see them during the daytime at all, and now you can you actually can see them. Another thing that I added, which I am very pleased about, is the tachometer. I had to buy a tachometer that would actually fit the ignition system of this bike. This bike puts out one ignition pulse, or one spark pulse, every 2 revolutions of the engine. So you have to have a tachometer that will accommodate this. Another thing that I've done with this bike is that I've added a bright red high output LED to the stop light and running light of the rear end. I also replaced the 1156 bulbs and sockets in the turn signal lamps with 1157 sockets and 1157 dual filament lamps. The first filament lights up when the running lights are on, and it makes the motorcycle much more visible during the day and especially during the night. The other modification was to the front turn signal lamps, and there I did the same thing. I substituted the 1156 sockets for 1157, only in this case I used very bright, very high output amber LED lamps that really light the bike up. And in the little bullet lamps on either side, the so-called parking lamps, I put high output amber LEDs, and they also really light the bike up. I'll turn on the ignition, and perhaps you can get an idea of what this thing looks like. This is with the bullet lights and the amber lights lit up along with the headlight. And here's what the turn signal light looks like. Very, very much brighter than the stock 1156 light. And here's what the rear end looks like. And now this is during the daytime. At night it is very, very much brighter. Finally, I added a little clock. And believe me, this is a very useful little device. I'm always curious about what time it is, and for just a few dollars you can add one of these little clocks to your motorcycle. One of the most important things I added to my motorcycle was these protector bars. Usually they call them engine protectors, but I don't really think they protect the engine. They just keep the bike from flopping over all the way. And I bought these because right after I bought the bike, I dropped the bike and it landed on my right leg, and I couldn't get out from underneath the motorcycle. I had to call for help, and It was very embarrassing when people came by and then lifted the motorcycle off of me. So one of the first things I did was I bought these roll protectors or drop protectors. I guess the proper term would be a drop protector, and they have really worked great. I have to admit that this bike is, for me, a really short guy with very short legs. This bike is very top heavy, and it's hard for me to keep it up once I've let the balance get a little too far over. And you can see I've already got scrapes and gouges on the protector bar, which I'm in a way rather proud of it. The bars did their job. I haven't since gotten trapped underneath, but I have dropped it about 3 times since I put the bars on. Okay, well, I think that's about all the major modifications I made, except that the bike really leaned over a long way when it was on its kickstand. So I welded on a little steel foot that raises it up, oh, I don't know, not quite an inch. And boy, does that make a difference. It's just so much easier to lift up again. Well, let's see, what else? Anything else? No, I think that's it. Anyway, I have to admit that I love this bike, and I'm very, very proud of it. I love driving it. It reminds me so much of the Triumph motorcycle that I had back in the late 60s over on Guam when I was in the Navy. And that Triumph motorcycle really redeemed me. I had a wonderful time on Guam thanks to the mobility and the freedom that the Triumph afforded me. And I have to admit that when I'm riding this bike, the years just seem to melt away, and there I am back on my English motorcycle, roaring down the highway, roaring down the back roads, and having a wonderful time. Oh, by the way, I did add some costume jewelry to the bike. I added this little peak. Doesn't really do anything, but I thought it added to the nostalgic look of the bike. And I also added this little pedestrian slicer fin to the front fender to complete that old-fashioned look. Anyway, again, I love this bicycle. It's fun to look at, it's fun to ride. People compliment me on it, and it just brings back a lot of wonderful memories. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video.